The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to another edition of Insights. I'm Bethany Ricciardi. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm also joined here today with Steve Smigelski, the airport manager at the Alpena County Regional Airport. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. So this is a big airport for our little town, I would say. Do you want to talk a little bit about the operations that it takes to run this establishment?
Well, Alpena actually is a large airport. The next largest one is going to be Oscoda, and they used to base B-52 bombers out of there. Wow. Alpena still has a 9,001 foot long main runway, and most airports only have like a 6,000 foot runway. Plus we have another 5,028 foot crosswind runway. So we are a pretty large establishment. Most of that is so that we can have the CRTC. They bring in the large freighters like the C-5 Galaxies and C-17, so they need a lot of room to take off and land. The fighters, not so much.
So you are obviously the manager. You have partnerships with the CRTC and SkyWest as well. I mean, so who are some of the people, employees, that you might see if you were coming through the terminal here?
Well, the first people you'd most likely run into would be the Delta Global Services people. DGS, they're not ticketing agents. They're actually a baggage handling company that's been hired by Delta to check you onto the aircraft and take your bags, check everything in. And then once you were finished with DGS, you would meet up with the TSA folks. Mm-hmm. There's some little misunderstanding about the TSA. They actually are not county employees. Some people think that they are. They're federal employees. So we have now two different entities. The people that you would never see, most likely, unless Odin is walking through the terminal, would be our Alpena Ground Services people, who are contracted to cut the grass and remove the snow. They also do our building maintenance, vehicle maintenance. They're jacks of all trades.
And Odin is your newest employee, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about him?
Odin is our most popular employee. Yeah. Odin was actually, he's 9 months old, and when Jay Hollister found him, he was basically the last pup in a litter that nobody wanted because his coloration wasn't right. So Jay picked him up, brought him home, and he had heard about another airport in Michigan that was using a dog to reduce the wildlife hazards, such as birds on the runway and such. So Jay asked me if it was all right, and I told him if you can train the dog properly, we'll give him an audition. And Odin took right to the job. Very little training was required. He's very obedient. He knows his job well.
And you would say that this is a benefit, a less lethal way, right, as well, to take care of the wildlife?
Definitely. We would normally try to move any birds off by beeping the horn at them, shooting bangers at them. But if they wouldn't leave and there were aircraft either scheduled to arrive or depart, well, then unfortunately you have to destroy them. With Odin, we have a wonderful tool because they now sense that there's a predator out here at the airport. Even though Odin won't kill, they don't know that. So when they see the dog coming at them, especially with the geese have a tendency to leave and not come back.
That's good. Yeah, they probably remember and don't want to return. So let's talk a little bit about some other changes. Any projects that you currently have going on here at the airport?
I'm pleased to say that all of our projects are complete.
Oh, awesome.
We had to get all of our pavement repairs taken care of, and all of our paint jobs had to be done because we had to clear the way for a new terminal. And I believe that we're probably at 90% now of getting the terminal design approved. So that'll be about 10 months worth of design because they have to figure out not only how to demolish this building and build the new terminal, they have to relay the parking lots, all the utilities have to be switched up. It's a big job.
And you guys just got the new schedule as well, right?
Yes, we did. That's been a big benefit to us. It was a little slow, no, pardon the pun, taking off, but it's really starting to get some traction now.
So do you want to talk a little bit about your partnership with SkyWest and how hopefully that might help employment numbers as well?
SkyWest has been really great to work with. They love Alpena, and they've told us so on the telephone conversations that we've had, that they would like to stay in Alpena regardless of whatever happens in the future. So they were the first ones to bid on the new Essential Air Service contract, and they were by far the best bidder that we had. So we're just waiting for the Department of Transportation to send us a signed contract, and we'll have SkyWest for another 2 years.
So I know you and I have talked about this plenty, and I'm sure a lot of our audience members have heard of this. You need the 10,000 employment numbers. So do you want to talk a little bit about the grant that you get from that and how that all works out?
Yeah, I would love to, because there is quite a bit of misunderstanding what that $1 million is. When we get that $1 million grant for reaching 10,000 employments, that's not a check that gets sent to us. It's more or less like a checking account, but the FAA are the ones that hold the checking account. And we can only use that money for things like buying new runway plows or doing pavement repairs, remarking. None of that money can be used for salaries or to pay the bills. It all has to be for airport improvements.
So I would say that sounds pretty essential, right, to have that source of income?
Essentially, yeah. We need that kind of money because of the amount of jet traffic that we have. If we were just a general aviation terminal that just had piston-driven aircraft, you could probably survive on the $150,000 grant that you get for being not a primary airport. But to keep all the nav aids running, to keep all the pavements in shape and all the markings fresh, you definitely need to have that airport improvement grant.
Now I know you mentioned the CRTC having planes land here, but you also have private jets and things like that as well?
Oh yeah, we have a pretty robust general aviation community here. Like all things in Michigan, it has a tendency to taper off once the snow flies, but it's not unusual whatsoever to see large private jets come in here, and a lot of small ones too. People who own airplanes are like people who own sports cars. They want to get out and drive them.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Well, great. We will be right back to talk more about the operations here at the airport, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Bethany Ricciardi, and we're still out here at the Alpena County Regional Airport talking about new upgrades, operations, and different things like that. And I'm here with Steve Smigelski, the airport manager. So Steve, would you say one of the biggest upcoming projects is the terminal?
The biggest project is the terminal. This is something that we had to clear everything else out of the way for so that any of the grant money could be utilized for building the new terminal. Currently, our terminal was built in the 1950s, and it's 6,000 square feet. What we're going to get at the end of this process is a brand new state-of-the-art facility that's going to be 18,000 square feet.
Totally new renovation?
Totally new.
Oh, wow. So who are you working with this? How is it going to look when when it's finally done?
Our S&H is our engineering firm. They're the ones that are going to be taking care of all the design aspects for us. And the pictures that I've seen so far, it's going to be completely glass facade. It's not going to be an old brick structure. So it'll be new, it'll be modern, it'll take advantage of natural light. We'll have new heat that comes up through the floor instead of the old forced air system, LED lighting. So it sounds like a lot of money to put up a new terminal, but the savings and what we're going to get from electricity and the HVAC system, it's all going to be worth it in the end.
What is the need for this? Like right now, would you say that the terminal isn't big enough for the operations that you have going on here?
No, the terminal, as I said, it's the flower of 1950s technology, and with the TSA security requirements alone, the place is just horribly undersized. Another problem that we're going to face very shortly is the Canadair CRJ-200 jets are going to be retired. Those are the 50-seaters that come in for us now.
Right.
The new jets are going to be 70-seat jets.
Wow.
And they sit up too high to use a boarding ladder. So we absolutely have to have a passenger boarding bridge, or we're probably going to be going out of the airline business, at least for jet traffic.
So what will it look like here? I know you mentioned we're tearing that down.
Now that's the old Welch hangar. That one was built back in the 70s, I believe it was. That hangar is going to go, and the new terminal will be built on that site, and it will probably extend another 80 feet into the current parking lot. So you can see where all the parking lots have to be relayed, all new utility is going to have to be run. This terminal, once everything is all done and we have the ribbon cutting there, this one's going to be demolished to make room for more parking yet. So everything's going to look different.
Expansion, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So do you have a timeline for this at all? How are you working around that?
Working with the FAA, we're going to be approved for the design. So the design is going to take place in fiscal year 2017, which starts October 1st. So that's going to probably take about 9 to 11 months to do all the design work. Then we'll probably have the groundbreaking in fiscal year 2018 with a ribbon cutting in fiscal year 2019.
Awesome. So not too far away if you think about it.
No, and time really is of the essence, because there's talk that the RJ200s might be retired in 5 years. So this isn't just some sort of boastful project. This is a gotta have if we're going to stay in the modern jet traffic.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead inside and check out the terminal you currently have.
Okay.
All right. So what would you say one of the busiest times is in the terminal? Are there busier times than others, or?
We just hit our peak travel season right now, and that's going to run June to August. And then it picks up again in November and December, of course, for the holidays. So the rest of the time we keep a fairly steady flow, but of course January and February, the only people leaving are going to Florida.
So it must play a big impact having 4 seasons here in Michigan. Do you think there's benefits as well as disadvantages or anything like that with the 4 seasons?
There's always an advantage to having 4 seasons. First of all, you get more tourist traffic, because people love to snowmobile just as much as some people love to dive on the wrecks. So the fact that we have these different seasons brings people in, and a lot of them use the airport.
So where are we right now? This looks like kind of maybe like a waiting area, maybe where a family would bring their family member and drop them off.
This is what they technically refer to as a meter greeter area.
Okay.
Yes. As you can see, the checkpoint cuts in quite a bit into what used to be the old meter greeter area. They were having trouble getting the airliners loaded quickly because they have a limited amount of time that they can be on the ground. So they had to expand the checkpoint. Unfortunately, given the size of the terminal, no matter what they did, it was going to have a terrible impact on the floor space. So this is why we have this spacious walkway when you come in. And the first thing that you would come to would be the Avis counter here, where Mr. Prokopi runs his business.
Rent a car type thing, or? And then behind us is where you do the check-in bags and things like that?
Yep, this is where you'd come in, check in, drop your bags, and your TSA experience begins.
So would you say that the security checkpoint is a good size? Does it work for the terminal as of right now?
It's better than what it was, because in the old security checkpoint, you could only fit like 10 people in it at a time, which that's what was slowing down the boarding process. Now you can fit 50 people in there. Unfortunately, there's no bathrooms in there. So everybody likes to wait until the last minute before they go in, which can lead to aircraft delays, because now TSA is under pressure to try to check everybody through rapidly.
So would you say that, or could you say one of the biggest things when the FAA came in here and kind of did an evaluation, was there anything that really stuck out to them that they were eager to change?
Well, probably the biggest thing that shocked them was the way that the baggage had to be handled. Because when we go over to the airline side, you'll have an opportunity to see where the bags come in and out of the building and where the TSA screening begins. So security was a huge issue to them. And this is probably one of the oldest terminals in the state of Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And it's not really a terminal. It's been called a building that we use as a terminal. I believe I would go along with that description.
Yeah, because it almost just doesn't have that feel like, you know, it's all one, you know, which could also bring some benefits, you know.
Well, initially it was 2 separate buildings.
Oh, wow.
The center section here was built in the 90s to bridge the 2 sections, but all your old HVAC and such is still in the 1950s side, and you're trying to pump air from that system into the new system, and more often than not, we don't keep up very well.
So big or small, why do you think having an airport in our county is important and beneficial overall?
Oh, economic impact is tremendous. Especially Alpena is still a very good industrial city. We have a lot of tourism. With an airport, you have easy access in and out. If you don't have an access like an airport, a lot of communities like Alpena have withered and died because they don't have the easy in and out aspect.
So how is it working with the county? I know you work with the commissioners a lot, in addition to your partnership with the base. How is it working with different aspects of the community?
Well, when I retired out of the military after 34 years, I was a little on the scared side to see what the civilian side would look like. I can say that there's just as much one side as the other as far as red tape goes. Everybody has their own procedures. I will say that the county commissioners, especially the airport committee, they've really taken a trust in me, and we are really working hard to try to improve things out here, and they're on board with the changes.
Awesome. And I know sometimes in the community you hear the bad over the good, but how is it working with the residents and feedback from them?
Well, any of the negative feedback that comes from the residents is completely understandable. Most of their complaints center around the facility itself, which nobody can argue that we do need a better facility. One of the problems that we had was our flight schedule. Our last flight schedule was terrible. Now with the new schedule where we have a 5:30 a.m. departure, the plane comes back from Detroit at 1 and then leaves again at 1:40. And then anybody traveling in from the west, they have all day to make their connections back to Detroit because the plane doesn't come back to Alpena until 10 p.m.
So it seems like people are kind of grasping that schedule too by now, right?
Yes,
Awesome.
yeah. It's definitely picking up in popularity and in numbers.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. And don't go anywhere, and you don't go anywhere, because we will be right back with more. Welcome back, everyone. So Steve, how about you let us know, and the audience, of course, where are we currently standing?
Right now we're standing on the civil ramp. The civil ramp is used for parking general aviation aircraft and for parking the airliner when it comes in.
And civil versus...
Military?
Yep, there we go. Okay, and that's right over here. Same size or so? Or?
Well, the military ramp is probably 4 times the size of this one.
Oh, wow.
Probably even larger than that, because they have to park those huge transport aircraft down there, so it's a much bigger ramp.
And what about some of these operations behind us?
Well, we have our fixed-based operators like Aviation North and Aviation Express. They do things like fuel sales, they can repair aircraft, minor repair of aircraft, even do detailing. Aviation North has a hangar where that's all they'll do is if your plane, just like your car, needs a good thorough cleaning, they can do it there.
And this is probably also where Odin does some of his work, huh?
Odin does most of his work out on the runways and taxiways, but he has been known to take a beauty lap around here just so people can see him.
Oh, of course. So I think one of my biggest interests is maintaining this area. I mean, you said it's over 9,000 feet of runway.
Oh yeah, just on one runway.
Right.
There was a study that was done by the Michigan Department of Transportation, and they quoted that 3/4 of an inch of wet snow on all the runways and taxiways equates to 2.1 million tons of snow that has to be moved. And it has to be moved quickly because the airliners have to get in and out. We've got the freighters that come in and out for FedEx and for UPS. They're all on a schedule. Plus any of your general aviation people, they have to get in and out as well.
So I guess it would be simple to say that delays, and especially in the wintertime, there's just so much to deal with, right? That delays will definitely maybe occur?
Well, delays will always occur. Normally, we don't have any issues here with the airport being closed, causing a delay. You may have weather systems in between Detroit and Alpena that are causing a delay, or as so often happens, when the aircraft leaves New York to go to Detroit, there can be weather in between there that prevents it from even getting to New York, so of course it's going to be late here.
So do you plan for overstaffing and things like that? Do you get extra help out here, you know, when you are trying to clear the runway and things like that?
Alpena Ground Services, we've got 4 employees for Alpena Ground Services. So the majority of the help that we get comes from the CRTC. I've got 2 plows, 1 blower, and 1 broom. And the CRTC has got 6 plows, 2 blowers, and 2 brooms. So they can really move a lot of snow, and they help us out a lot in the wintertime.
So how about some of the technology that takes place out here? I see a lot of different products that I guess I don't really know what they do. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the advancements that are out here?
Well, Alpena is really well equipped. We've got what's called an ILS, an instrumented landing system, and there's 2 sets of antennas, one at one end of the runway, one at the other. One's called the glide slope, and the other one is called the localizer. The localizer will tell the airplane if it's lined up left and right, and the glide slope tells it if it's coming in at the proper angle to land. So even in bad weather, the ILS will help the pilots land safely.
Wow, that's really cool.
That, and we have precision approach indicator lights, we have a VOR, there's lots of nav aids out here.
So do we have a watchtower, or I'm not sure, is that what you would call it?
An air traffic control tower?
Yeah.
Yes. The CRTC has the air traffic control tower.
Okay.
They also have the radar approach control. So they're the ones that during their business hours, they take care of all the traffic coming in and out. And what some people don't know is that even when an airplane is on the ground, the air traffic control tower is still talking to them, because you have to have a ground controller to make sure planes don't run into each other while they're taxiing on the taxiways.
That would be a good thing,
Yes.
absolutely. So do you think this partnership really equals out? Do you think there couldn't really be one without the other?
If we didn't have the CRTC, besides the snow removal help that they give us, they also provide our crash rescue. So they've got 7 or 8 pieces of equipment there that, if the unfortunate should happen where we had an aircraft that crashed or slid off the runway, they would be our first responders. If one of the buildings caught fire out here, their fire trucks would be the first ones here.
So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the safety drills that you do? I think you do them with the CRTC, right?
Oh, yes.
Do you want to, I know there's been like chemical spill safety, you even just had a mock shooter.
Active shooter.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Well, the drills are designed to keep everybody trained up for any eventuality. Unfortunately, things being the way they are, we decided to have an active shooter scenario for this year's exercise, and we're probably going to do that again for the full-scale exercise next year. You have to have one every year to keep yourself certified, and it's basically a crawl, walk, run. The first year, it's basically a tabletop one. The second, it's more or less a walkthrough with limited participation. But next year is going to be the full-scale one, where there will actually be fire trucks and ambulances responding. The police will respond, because everything has to be checked for time, too.
So is there anything really out here that you guys are looking to upgrade or advance, just like you kind of are with the terminal inside?
Right now, the airfield is pretty much where it needs to be.
Good.
Once we get the new terminal in place, then we can start talking about other things.
So overall with operations, how would you say things flow? Do you think you guys have a good setup for the most part, just looking forward to completing the terminal project?
Yeah, that terminal, I hate to keep going back to it, but it is going to be such a huge improvement for the airport. It's going to be so much easier for the passengers, it's going to be better for the airlines, it's going to be better for everybody.
And I guess just kind of bringing it back a little bit to the enplanement numbers, how are those going, and are you confident that you're going to make those 10,000 and see that grant money?
Well, this year we didn't do so well. We had a schedule change that was, let's just say it was slightly mishandled, and we really did lose a bunch of enplanements. So we're probably not going to make the 10,000 this year. However, Senate Bill 239 did get passed with the FAA.
It did.
Yes, it did.
That's awesome. Okay.
So if we don't make our enplanements this year or in fiscal year 2017, we'll be allowed to use our numbers from fiscal year 2013, and correction, 2012, and we had 13,000 enplanements that year.
That's great.
So for the next 2 years, we're all set because of Senate Bill 239.
That's awesome. And was it a Michigan senator or anyone who kind of pushed that along?
No, this was at the federal level.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. It'll definitely help this airport and probably smaller airports around us, right?
Yeah, that's the name of it, was the Small Airport Relief Act.
Oh, that's great.
There was a huge downturn in air travel for the last 4 years. So the regional airports like Alpena were really getting hurt. So the federal government actually stepped in and did us a huge favor.
That's awesome. I'm very glad to hear that. And thank you so much for talking about the operations with us here today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And be sure to stay tuned next week for another edition of Insights.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.